You are listening to Lighthearted, the official podcast of the United States Lighthouse Society. My name is Jeremy D'Entremont. Welcome. My co-host again today for the second consecutive episode is Avery Shaughnessy Comfort, Executive Director of the Presque Isle Light Station in Pennsylvania. Hi, Avery.
Hi, Jeremy. Thanks for having me back.
Of course. Today is December 1st, 2024, and this is episode 303 of Lighthearted. In a few minutes, we'll listen to a conversation with the Executive Director of the Door County Historical Society in Wisconsin. We're now well into the holiday season, and I hope our listeners had a good Thanksgiving. Avery, your organization takes care of 3 lighthouses around Erie, Pennsylvania. 2 of them are open to the public. So are they closed for the season at this point?
Yes, they are closed for the season. They are decorated, though, for anybody driving by who wants to check out the lights, not just the light in the top of the tower, but some holiday lights outside on the grounds, too. So they're still beautiful, even though you can't go inside until about April.
Yeah. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, I love seeing lighthouses decorated for the holidays. So we're actually recording this a little bit earlier, but this episode will come out on December 1st. So on that afternoon, or this afternoon, December 1st, my wife and I will be attending a local production of the Nutcracker Ballet at a little theater in Kittery. It's a really nice production, a really intimate kind of theater. It's become a holiday tradition for us. Do you have anything special planned for the holidays, Avery?
I do. It's a busy time of year for me. I am in a Philharmonic chorus here in Erie. So we are doing 2 concerts, 2 Holiday Pops concerts this year. One, we're doing Handel's Messiah, and then we're doing a small concert the week before Christmas. So it's going to be a busy December for me, but a very enjoyable one.
Fantastic. I actually didn't know about all that. Will there be possibly like video posted of this stuff on YouTube or anything like that?
Probably. You can look up Erie Philharmonic on YouTube, or you can visit their website at eriephil.org if you're interested. They're a fabulous orchestra. They're actually one of the longest standing orchestras in the nation, which is pretty cool. And my chorus that I'm a part of is 145 members strong, so we're a loud group.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. What is your range as a singer?
I am a soprano 1, so all of the high notes.
Wow. I am impressed. We'll have to have you sing a Lighthouse song or something on the podcast sometime.
Oh, gosh. I just won't do any high notes on the podcast. I feel like that would be a little too much for our listeners.
All right. It might break glasses at home or something.
It could.
Yeah. So before we get to today's interview, I want to mention something that's coming up with the U.S. Lighthouse Society, and maybe you can help me with this, Avery. But I'll start. The Society will host a virtual conference on March 25th to 27th, 2025, to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the National Historic Lighthouse Preservation Act, or NHLPA, in collaboration with personnel from the United States Coast Guard, National Park Service, and General Services Administration, or GSA.
The goal of the conference is to demonstrate and showcase the tremendously positive impact the NHLPA has had on America's historic lighthouses and their caretakers by having NHLPA lighthouse owners and federal and state agencies share success stories, challenges, and lessons learned. A secondary goal is to establish or strengthen networks so that lighthouse owners can communicate and help each other more effectively.
Online registration is required for participation in the conference. Owners and managers of lighthouses that were transferred through the NHLPA between 2002 and 2024 were recently sent invitations to register. That includes nonprofits, government agencies, and private owners. State historic preservation offices in coastal states also received invitations.
Because of limitations on the number of participants, invitees have the opportunity to register until January 15th. At that point, the USLHS will open registration to anyone interested in attending until the capacity is reached. For more information, visit the USLHS website at uslhs.org.
Yeah, well, that was a lot of information we just gave, but the bottom line is the last thing you said there. People can check out all the information at uslhs.org if they are interested in this virtual conference about the National Historic Lighthouse Preservation Act this coming March. So thank you for helping with that, Avery. I will be taking part. I'm sure it'll be an interesting virtual conference. So in our last episode, we explored the Manitowoc North Breakwater Light in Wisconsin. Today we're back in Wisconsin, and we'll listen to a talk I had with Amy Frank, who is the director of the Door County Historical Society. So Avery, please help me introduce Amy.
Sure, Jeremy. Door County, along the northwestern shore of Lake Michigan, is a popular vacation destination and one of the most lighthouse-rich areas in the country. The county's name comes from the French phrase, Porte de Mort, or Death's Door, meaning the passage between the tip of Door Peninsula and Washington Island.
The 1800s and early 1900s saw the arrival of many mariners, loggers, farmers, and other pioneers. Tourism grew in the area in the early 1900s. Around 1,000 people a year were visiting by 1909, and that number has steadily grown to reach about 2 million per year today.
Door County is home to 11 historic lighthouses. One of the most iconic is Cana Island Lighthouse, an 89-foot tower that's under the stewardship of the Door County Maritime Museum. The museum also hosts 2 Door County Lighthouse Festivals each year, one in the spring and one in the fall.
The Door County Historical Society, based in Sturgeon Bay, operates 2 sites, Eagle Bluff Lighthouse and Heritage Village. Eagle Bluff Lighthouse began service in 1868 and served as a valuable navigational aid to help ships passing through the Strawberry Channel, a narrow passage surrounded by islands. In its staffed years, Eagle Bluff was considered an attractive assignment, and it had only 3 keepers over 58 years until its 1926 automation.
Eagle Bluff Lighthouse, which is now in Peninsula State Park, was restored in the early 1960s. Since then, the Society has offered tours of the lighthouse and living quarters during the summer and fall months. The lighthouse is furnished with authentic period pieces and donations from Historical Society members.
The Historical Society also created and manages Heritage Village, offering visitors a glimpse into community life more than 100 years ago. The village includes 8 historic buildings. Amy Frank is the executive director of the Door County Historical Society, and it was my pleasure to speak with her recently. So let's listen to that conversation now. I'm speaking today with Amy Frank, who is the executive director of the Door County Historical Society in Wisconsin. And the society is very involved with the Eagle Bluff Lighthouse, which we're going to talk about today. Thanks so much for doing this today, Amy.
Well, thanks for having me on. I'm thrilled to be here.
Maybe we could start by talking a little bit about you. Could you tell me a little bit about your background and what led to your position as executive director of the Door County Historical Society?
Sure, I'd be happy to. My background actually is in theater and performing arts. So it's kind of a weird roundabout way that I came to the Historical Society. I used to live outside of Madison, Wisconsin. That's where I raised my family, and I worked in a variety of theaters there, and then had the opportunity to move to Sturgeon Bay to work at Third Avenue Playworks in 2019. And so I jumped at the opportunity, which is, who wouldn't want to work in a theater in Door County? And moved up here, actually moved away from my family. My husband and our youngest son stayed in the Madison area so that he could complete high school. So we lived apart for about 3 years while I did that. And I had a great time at Third Avenue Playworks and accomplished a lot there. We did a complete restoration of a historic building that had been turned into the theater, and we gutted the inside of it and redid it. So I had a fabulous time doing that, and I was just enthralled with the history of the building, and kind of every time we tore something down, there was something to find behind the wall, and I just was really intrigued by that. So when my time there was finished, there was an opening at the Historical Society, so I applied for that.
Wow.
They hired me. Go figure.
Yeah, that's great. But I'm interested to hear about your background in theater. My brother is a playwright, and he started a theater company years ago in Boston and stuff.
Nice.
And you ever hear of Emerson College in Boston by any chance?
Sure. Yes.
Yeah, that's right. I went there about 1 million years ago, and actually majored in film. But of course, theater is one of their big things there too.
Sure.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Well, that's exciting.
So I can't say I have a background in theater, but I've kind of been on the edges of it for a long
Right.
time. So really
You know,
interested.
I
Yeah.
think that theater kind of transcends all areas of life. So, a lot of the skills that I have honed during my time at working for nonprofits, I've been able to use at the Historical Society as well.
That makes a lot of sense, sure. And I always think the arts, you're right, it relates to everything in one way or
Yep,
another. Yeah, it's a
absolutely.
very important part of life for sure. So before we talk about Eagle Bluff Lighthouse, can you tell me about Heritage Village, which is something else the Historical Society manages, I
Right.
believe. Hmm.
Heritage Village is another one of our interpretive sites that we maintain and manage, and it is in Sturgeon Bay. So it's actually right off the highway as you're coming through Sturgeon Bay, and it basically is a replica of a rural crossroads village that you would have seen in Door County about the time period between 1880 and 1910. And then we have 9 buildings on the property. Some are original that have been moved to the location, and some are recreations of buildings. So we have a general store. We have a schoolhouse, we have a granary, a blacksmith shop, a chapel, and we have 2 homes that have been relocated to the property. And then we have our tool museum, which is a really unique building. It's a reconstruction of a barn that was located elsewhere in Door County, and they took it apart piece by piece, brought it back and rebuilt it on site. And then inside is housed an incredibly large collection of antique tools and historic tools. And it is run by a couple brothers, the Madden brothers, because they were the ones that saw the vision for this building and had already a pretty good collection of tools. And of course, more people have donated tools as well. So it's just a really unique building. It's the only one that we're aware of in the state of Wisconsin. And that's worth the trip itself, just to go into that tool museum and look at all the different tools and hear all the stories.
I don't know if I know of a tool museum anywhere else.
Oh, all right. Well, I'm gonna
Not that I'm aware of. I'm
run with
sure
it.
maybe I'll hear from somebody who knows about such a thing. But I mean, otherwise, what you're describing reminds me of some places we have here in New England, like Old Sturbridge Village in Massachusetts,
Sure.
the Shelburne Museum in Vermont, and others. But the tool
Yeah.
museum part, it sounds pretty unique to me.
It is very unique, and it just adds to the whole experience, of kind of stepping back in time.
Yeah. Eagle Bluff Lighthouse, if I have it right, was established in 1868. So why was a lighthouse needed there at that time?
So that was, of course, shortly after the Civil War, and you were seeing a lot of expansion west, right? Everybody was traveling out west, and it was treacherous travel, of course, to kind of go through all the primitive forests and stuff. So the majority of people traveled by water, kind of up the Hudson River, connected with the Erie Canal, and that's how they got into the Great Lakes. If your listeners aren't familiar with Door County Peninsula, we call it the thumb of Wisconsin. It sticks out into Lake Michigan and creates the Bay of Green Bay. And so a lot of ships were trying to get to the city of Green Bay, and there was a passage called the Strawberry Passage that was pretty treacherous and full of shoals, but the captains of the ships liked it because it was faster than going around one of the islands. So they received the commission from the U.S. Lighthouse Board when they reviewed requests for lighthouses, and they determined that Eagle Bluff on the top of that bluff would be a good place for a lighthouse.
And the lighthouse that stands there today is the original lighthouse. Is that correct?
Is the original lighthouse. That is correct.
Yeah. So in the early days, when it was first established there, 1868 is a while ago. Was it a very remote location at the time?
It was very remote, and everything was accessed via the water. Of course, it's on top of a bluff, so they had to build a staircase up to the top of the bluff. But it was very difficult to get through the forest on foot to get to the lighthouse. So the majority, especially in the very beginning, all of the visitors and all of the stuff came via the water.
And was it one of the light stations where you had a single keeper living with their family? Is that correct?
Correct. Yep. So the lighthouse was manned from when it was first lit in 1868 until 1918, and we had 3 different keepers who lived at the lighthouse during that time period.
Do you have anything that stands out in your mind as far as stories, what it was like to live there, or particular incidents that happened to the keepers and families there? Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of stories, particularly from what we call the Duclon era, when Captain William Duclon lived there with his wife, Julia. They were there from 1883 until 1916, and they raised their 7 sons at the lighthouse.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Captain Duclon had been an assistant lighthouse keeper, and then he was selected to be at Eagle Bluff and replace Henry Stanley.
7 sons and no daughters?
No daughters until those 7 sons married, of course.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Wow.
That is our period that we focus on at the lighthouse.
Okay. So is it restored to that period? Is that?
It is restored to that period, and I have a lot of fun stories about when the Door County Historical Society received permission to restore the lighthouse in the 60s. The youngest of those Duclon boys was still alive and became aware of what we were doing. He was living in Green Bay and assisted all of the volunteers with the restoration process. So not only was he able to tell us what each of the rooms were, where to place furniture, how they would have had the furniture. He also donated a lot of personal items that had been in the lighthouse, and so we have a lot of original artifacts, which is amazing. The most important thing that we received from Walter Duclon are all the stories. So he was able to share a lot of the stories of him growing up. I believe he was 1 when they moved to the lighthouse, and so he really truly grew up there. And shared all the stories with us, which is what we love to pass along to all of our visitors.
Would you care to share a story or two?
Oh, absolutely. One of the stories is that they didn't have a well at the lighthouse originally because they're on top of a bluff. And so they had a system with a cistern that they could use. But when that was dry, and they needed more water, they had to haul it up from the bay. And again, there was this very steep staircase down to the water from the top of the bluff. And each of the boys, when they turned about 8 years old, Captain Duclon would make them a yoke that they would wear with the buckets, and they would walk down the stairs and haul water up for the family to use for all of their needs. And Walter actually donated his yoke that his father had made for him. So we have that on display in the lighthouse.
Oh, wow. Does it look like a yoke you would use on oxen, pretty much?
It looks a little more comfortable than that.
Okay.
It has an area carved out for the neck, so it's a little, not quite as painful on the back of your neck. But
yeah.
Yeah.
I was picturing something.
Especially to the kids. We love to show the kids that and ask them to imagine what that would have been like.
I was picturing something really big, like you would put it on an ox, and it's hard to imagine that or not. Yeah.
On an 8-year-old boy. No.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Wow. That's really cool. Were there any other stories you think?
Oh my gosh, so many stories.
There's so many. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Maybe one more of those stories.
Sure. We are so lucky to have a really special artifact in the building. The Duclon family was very musical. So Julia taught all of her sons music. They played a lot of instruments, and Captain Duclon purchased for them a piano, and had to have that delivered, via ships and hauled up the stairs, of course. And the first piano that he ordered, they couldn't get it into the lighthouse. It was too big. So he had to send that one back and purchased a second one. And that one, they needed to remove the legs and actually put it through the window to get it into the house because it didn't fit through the door. And we have that piano. It's a Chickering piano. It's beautiful. It's only a 7-octave piano instead of an 8-octave, so it's a little bit smaller. But we have a lot of stories of how the boys they formed a band and they would play around the county, at little dance halls and stuff. And they would have to take the piano out the window, wrap it in Julia's quilts, and put it on the wagon and take it to wherever they were going.
Holy cow.
Yeah. Julia was a prolific quilter and a very, very good quilter. We also have a number of her quilts in the lighthouse as well.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
When you talked about the piano at first, I was going to ask, do you have a piano in the
we
building?
Have the piano.
You have the piano. That is fantastic.
Yeah.
Do you ever have any little performances on the piano there?
That is such a great question. We just had the piano kind of restored. Some of the keys that were missing, we had them replaced, and it was some of the strings that needed to be replaced, and then it was tuned up. So it's sounding remarkably good, and that is in our plans for next year, is to do some concerts on the piano.
So let's jump ahead to the Door County Historical Society's restoration of the lighthouse property, which I believe happened in the early 60s. Is that about right?
That's correct. So the lighthouse was automated in 1926, and by this point, the Peninsula Park, where the lighthouse is located, had become a state park. And so the lighthouse was kind of used off and on as rangers' quarters. Sometimes some of the park staff would live there. I believe at one point they were renting it out as a vacation home for people when they came to visit. And then it sat empty for a number of years. There were probably squatters in there, and it was just vacated. So the Door County Historical Society was looking for a major project to take on, and became aware of the lighthouse, and talked with the Department of Natural Resources, who obviously owns the park and owns the lighthouse, and received permission to restore it and turn it into a public museum, which I'm told was one of, if not the first of its type in the Great Lakes. And it opened in 1963 as a public museum.
First lighthouse museum on the Great Lakes, isn't it?
On the Great Lakes, yeah. And I haven't been able to, to do the research to find out if that's true. So we just say one of the first.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty safe.
On the Great Lake, yeah.
It's always a little dangerous to make absolute statements like that.
That's right. But it was a complete volunteer effort. It took them 3 years. I have heard stories of they had to scrape 80 layers of paint off the walls. Apparently, whenever one of the boys got in trouble, the punishment was to paint. So there were lots of layers of paint on the walls that had to be scraped off, and just repairing it and getting it back to something that people would enjoy walking through as a public museum.
Yeah, literally 80 layers of paint.
I don't know if that's an exaggeration or not, but I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't.
Yeah, well, many.
Many, yes.
So, but again, you have the restoration to the Duclon period there includes the colors inside the building as well? Yes,
and a lot of that, we pull from the historic documents from the Lighthouse Service and what the required colors were. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned the light was automated in 1926, which is pretty early for that kind of thing. But today, is the light itself still an active aid to navigation?
It is absolutely an active navigational aid. It's run by the U.S. Coast Guard, and there is a beacon out on the railing of our tower. Yeah, and our signal is 1 second on, 6 seconds off.
Okay. So as you said, the optic is not inside the lantern. It's mounted outside.
It's mounted outside the railing. Yep.
Is there some sort of optic operating or non-operating inside the lantern as well?
We do. We have our original Fresnel lens.
You do. Okay. That's what I thought. Yeah. I just wanted to confirm that. So probably fourth order or fifth order? What do you know?
3.5.
3.5. Well, it's interesting because there are in New England, here where I am, there's one 3.5 order lens at a lighthouse in Massachusetts, but I think there's a number of them on the Great Lakes for some reason. So
it's our second lens. I believe the first one was a fifth, and then it was replaced with a 3.5.
Jumping even more right to the present here, is the lighthouse open on a regular basis for the public?
Yep, we are open about mid-May through mid-October, and it is open 7 days a week for people to come into the lighthouse and do a self-guided tour. We do have docents that are inside and can answer questions and share stories, but for the most part, it's a self-guided tour, which is really nice because then you can kind of take your time and to go through all of the rooms and really focus on what happened in each room.
Sure. Does that include a climb into the lantern room or no?
It does. You can climb the light tower. You cannot go into the lantern room, but you can see it. We have a hole at the top of the stairs that you can look through. So you can see the lens. You can see the view out the windows. But the Coast Guard requires us to keep that locked, and so people can't go up there. And honestly, it's a pretty tight fit. I don't know many people that would be able to move around up there. It's not comfortable.
Yeah, a lot of lighthouses of that era or earlier are kind of like that. They're not the easiest to get up through the trapdoor, what they used to call the scuttle in lighthouses. So,
yeah, I suspect that people were a lot smaller back in those days as well.
On average, I think that's absolutely right. Do you have a gift shop in there as well?
We do have a gift shop. Right now it is currently housed in the winter kitchen. So you walk into through the back door, and that's where our gift shop is and where we sell admissions as well. So with our upcoming project and our reconstruction plans, that will move out of there so we can reinterpret the winter kitchen as it was.
Okay. I think it was on your website. I saw something about twilight tours at the lighthouse. Tell me about those.
Twilight tours we offer every year in the fall, and it's a really unique experience, kind of a different way to view the lighthouse. We light it all up, and of course the lighthouse has no electricity or running water, so we rely on a lot of battery powered lighting, but we light lanterns and have different luminaries on the sidewalk and everything leading up to the lighthouse. We do put a light up in the lantern room so you can see what it would have looked like to have the Fresnel lens lit up. And then it's a guided tour through the lighthouse, and every room has something different in it. So we do poetry readings about lighthouses. We have musicians playing period specific music in one of the rooms. There's a storyteller in another room. And then Captain Duclon and his wife Julia sort of roam throughout the lighthouse to tell their stories and share what it was like living in the lighthouse.
You mean actual ghosts or people portraying them?
People portraying them.
Okay.
With interpreters.
Yeah, no, I kind of figured that as you're describing that all these different activities, it brings me back to your arts background. I bet that figured into the development of that kind of thing a little bit.
Well, actually, Twilight Tours has been going on for a while. That was a program in place before I started. But
okay.
I certainly can, grab onto that one and
I'll bet
and enjoy it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
that's my thing. Yeah.
That's great. It's always so nice being at a lighthouse kind of in the off hours, the sunset into the night, that kind of time. It's very special.
Oh my gosh. Yes, we've gotten beautiful pictures of sunsets there. And, the property that the lighthouse is on is gorgeous in and of itself. And because it's part of the state park, people can come there anytime and walk around the property and check out the view, and lots of photo opportunities as well. So you're right. Yeah. Twilight Tours is just a really different way to see the lighthouse that's not normal.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I think it's a great idea. A lot of our listeners, I'm sure, are familiar with the Door County Lighthouse Festival or festivals. I understand there's 2 a year in the spring and fall.
That's correct.
And of course, you must take part in that, right?
We do. That is a program that's run by the Door County Maritime Museum, because there are, I believe, 13 lighthouses in Door County. It might be off on that. And several of them are not accessible every day. And so the Lighthouse Festival affords you the opportunity to see those lighthouses that you can't always see, either from land, from boats, or from air. They've added airplane tours as well. So absolutely, we participate in that and appreciate having all the extra visitors come to Eagle Bluff.
The fall one has already happened this year, is that right?
That is correct. Yep.
Yeah,
I think it's the first weekend in October.
Sam Perlman, who's the director of the Door County Maritime Museum, has been on this podcast, and got to meet him at the CAM conference, the Community, I think, of American Maritime Museums, CAM, which was held in Boston just a few months ago.
Great.
So, yeah,
wonderful. He's a great guy.
Yes. I understand you're having a capital campaign to raise funds for the lighthouse. So what are the goals? What are the big areas of concern that led to that capital campaign?
So before I started with the Historical Society back in 2019, they commissioned a historic structures report for the lighthouse. The lighthouse really has not seen a major restoration effort since that 1960s original restoration. And of course, things have been done throughout the years to kind of put Band-Aids on problems, but it really was time for a major restoration. So this HSR was commissioned and completed in 2020, and which led to the board accepting it and kicking off a capital campaign to raise the funds to complete the items that the HSR indicated were in need of repair.
Restoration of a place like that is never finished, of course.
Of course. So. Yes, it's just delayed.
Right. But once you think you've taken care of everything, there's other things that need work. Always.
That is correct. Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there may be some plans to reconstruct a building or buildings that have been lost in the past.
That's correct. So the overall restoration plan is kind of broken into 3 areas. I don't like to say phases because they're not happening sequentially, but 3 different areas. The first of which was immediate stabilization, things that were cause for concern that needed to be addressed before they got worse or became irreversible. So that obviously was the most important component, was the immediate stabilization, and that has been completed at the lighthouse. We worked on that all summer, and very happy to say that phase is done. The other area is restoration, of course, of the interior of the lighthouse, and just some of the restoration of the inside, the walls, the woodwork, just fixing all of that. Nothing that's necessarily causing damage, but just needs a little freshen up. And the third component is reconstruction. So we know from historical photos that there were a lot of buildings on site. Obviously, a family of 9 living there would need a lot of buildings to help them just sustain life at the top of this bluff. And so the 2 buildings that we're focusing on and want to reconstruct are the barn and the summer kitchen. And the barn will be historically accurate from the exterior and look just the way that it did. It'll be in a similar location, but not quite the exact location. And that we're going to use on the inside to house our admissions and our gift shop. We're also planning to have some exhibits inside the barn, specifically for those who can't necessarily navigate the lighthouse due to all the stairs. So we want them to be able to see what it looks like inside, even if they can't go in. The loft of the barn will be converted into storage, which will be great for us during the winter months. Currently, we have volunteers taking a lot of items into their own homes to store for the winter. So it'll be nice to have a heated space where we can keep all of our artifacts and delicate items over the winter time. And then the summer kitchen will just be interpreted as a summer kitchen because, again, like I said, we can interpret the winter kitchen the way that it was, and you'll understand that difference and that connection.
Sounds great. So is there a particular fundraising goal and amount you're trying to raise?
Yeah, so we're estimating it'll cost about $3.2 million to do everything that we want to do. That's a fluid number. It changes all the time, but we kind of have labeled at 3.2. And we've raised 1.55 to date. Wow. So we are obviously still accepting donations and assistance to help us finish all the items that need to be taken care of.
How can people donate?
So they can, any way that they would like. They can go on the website. They can call me. They can come and visit the lighthouse when it's open. They can come to our office and make a donation there. So any way, probably the easiest would be via the website.
Sure. Which is?
DoorCountyHistoricalSociety.org. And there's a button there to click for Eagle Bluff Lighthouse. It takes you to all the information, how to donate, tells you the history of the lighthouse a little bit. And then we also have a blog on our website as well that we had a volunteer throughout this whole immediate stabilization process all summer long that was up at the lighthouse every day taking pictures of the progress and writing a little narrative. So it's kind of fun to go through that blog and see how things progress throughout the summer.
So as you said, the stabilization has been happening, but are there any target dates for the reconstructions, things like that?
I wish there was a target date. We have the funding that we need to reconstruct the barn and the summer kitchen. We have our architect plans done. We have contractors lined up. But because the lighthouse is owned by the state of Wisconsin and is sitting on the state of Wisconsin property, obviously anything that we do permanently to the lighthouse needs to pass through their approval system. So we are in limbo, waiting on our project to go through the various stages at the DNR that it needs to go through for approval.
Yeah. Not to disparage the state of Wisconsin, but the wheels of government tend to turn slowly, whether you're talking federal or state or local.
Absolutely. And the park superintendent has been amazing to work with, and he's extremely supportive of everything we want to do at the lighthouse. So I really appreciate that. I have nothing bad to say about DNR, the individuals who work for the DNR. It's the system, and you just have to wait.
Yeah, so. I totally understand, having experienced similar things as pretty much anybody in the lighthouse preservation world has experienced. So I have 2 final questions for you, okay? And these are for bonus points.
Oh, okay.
So I hope you've
no pressure.
Hope you have your number 2 pencil ready for these questions. Okay. So the first of the 2 bonus questions is, why do you think it's important to preserve Eagle Bluff Lighthouse?
Oh my goodness, it's incredibly important to preserve this piece of history that has survived for 150 years and counting, because it tells us where we come from. It tells us how we got to where we are today. That lighthouse is one of the reasons that Door County has become what it is, because it allowed people to get here, essentially. And anytime that we can recreate or help people understand and experience firsthand what life was like during that time period and what it meant to be a light keeper and how important it was, just enhances, how we feel about our community, the ownership that we feel, and kind of our own humanity and how we have overcome obstacles. And it's so important to know where you came from.
That is really beautifully said. I was thinking you could what you just said could be made into a commercial or PSA for what you're doing. So let me know if you want a copy of the.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm glad you have it recorded then, because I don't remember.
It was perfect, absolutely perfect.
Thank
So you get a gold star for that one.
Ooh.
So one final question, and that question is, what is your favorite thing, or it can be things, plural, about your work with the Historical Society? But let's specifically talk about Eagle Bluff Lighthouse, your favorite thing or things.
I never would have considered myself a history buff, and I still don't consider myself a history buff, but I have really gained respect for things that have happened in the past. And I think that some of that comes just with age, right? Like as we age and have more experiences, we can better relate to those who came before us much more than you can as a high schooler in your history class. But Eagle Bluff Lighthouse is so amazing because of all the original artifacts that we have. We have the original logbook, the Lightkeeper's logbook, that is on display. Obviously, it's not there in the winter. We take it back to the office for safekeeping, but sometimes I just can't believe that I have this document sitting in front of me, and the writing that I'm looking at was written by a Civil War veteran. It's just like, it just floors me. So I think every day I learn something new about our ancestors and what their lives were like. And it's interesting to compare that to our lives and how different they are. So yeah, I think just every day I learn something new. I guess that would be what I enjoy the most.
That's what I enjoy most about this podcast too, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Yeah. Whenever, we should never stop learning.
That's right.
Lives,
and
sure.
that kind of goes along with my theater background as well, because every show is a different story that you're telling, and you learn more about yourself and about other people, and it's always something different. Yeah. I used to work in a high school setting, in a theater at a high school setting, and I would tell the students, what I love the most is when a show is over and you clean up the stage and you put everything away, and then you have this beautiful blank space that's just waiting for the next story. So I figured out how to do that with the history as well.
Yeah, I can see that. Good for you. Yeah. So that logbook you have, is that from Duclon, Keeper Duclon?
Yeah, Henry Stanley started it. Because I believe, and you probably know this better than I do, when the lighthouse was first lit in 1868, I don't think it was mandatory that they keep a logbook. That came later. And that was later in Stanley's career. I don't know the exact date. I'm sorry. But so some of it is from Henry Stanley, and then it's all of Walter Duclon, or William Duclon's tenure, and then his predecessor as well.
And were they the type that tended to only write the bare bones of maybe a little bit about the weather, if they purchased oil or whatever it might have been, that sort of thing? Yeah. Yes,
the majority of the entries are identical, to the line above it. But we do have records of when visitors would come to the lighthouse, and yet when supplies came. Apparently, they had a lot of visitors at Eagle Bluff Lighthouse. It kind of was a social hub. But I would imagine if you have 7 boys, that would happen.
I would think so. Yeah. Well, this is all wonderful stuff. I'm so glad we had a chance to talk, Amy. Yeah. I need to visit your lighthouse one of these days.
I would love that if you would come and visit it.
I would love that too.
And welcome anytime.
Oh, thank you very much. And I'm sure a lot of our listeners, some of them, I'm sure, have come to the Door County lighthouse festivals and to your lighthouse, but I'm sure a lot more hopefully will hopefully this has whet their appetite to pay a visit there.
That would be great. We're just about to close up for the season, unfortunately, but we'll be open again next mid-May next year.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe next year I'll get there. I've only seen a tiny little sliver of Wisconsin. I've been to Minnesota, Duluth area and stuff.
Okay. Well, you're missing out. Wisconsin is pretty great.
I know. That's the big hole in my lighthouse experience. I've seen just about everything on the east and west coast, but I still got a lot of the Great Lakes to catch up on.
Well, it's good to have goals.
Yes. Yeah. So thank you so much, Amy. It's really nice meeting you and talking with you today. And let's stay in touch, and hope to have you back on the podcast sometime. Thanks so much, Amy.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
You can learn more about the Door County Historical Society and Eagle Bluff Lighthouse at doorcountyhistoricalsociety.org. The lighthouse closed for the season in late October, but the Society offers a special event at Heritage Village every Friday and Saturday evening in December. The buildings are decorated for the holidays, with each building brought to life with decor provided by local nonprofit organizations.
Another cool thing the Historical Society does is a couple of evenings of twilight tours at Eagle Bluff Lighthouse in September and October. It's always a treat to be at a lighthouse in the evening. You can read about all these events on the Society's website. It was really nice to meet and talk with Amy Frank, and I really hope I can visit out there sometime. Avery, I understand maybe you have something special going on at your lighthouses this holiday season. Is that right?
We do. So very similar to actually what the lighthouses in Wisconsin are doing. We are having Presque Isle lights on the Presque Isle State Park, and we are partnering with our partners, Presque Isle Partnership, how many times can I say partner in a sentence, and Pennsylvania DCNR, which is our Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. So it's 13 miles of lighted displays throughout the park, and of course the key feature is the Presque Isle Lighthouse, we like to say. So it's beautifully lit up for the holidays, and you can drive by in the evenings all through December.
Wow, great. I would guess that maybe information about that is on your website. Is that right?
It's on our website and also on the Presque Isle Partnership website, which is presqueislepartnership.org.
Okay, great. And of course, your lighthouses is another destination I have to visit one of these years. I really hope I can. Maybe next year it could happen.
Hey, just let me know.
I will.
A reminder to listeners to check out uslhs.org to learn about all of the things the U.S. Lighthouse Society offers, including the Passport Program, preservation grants, domestic and international tours, and more. Donations and memberships help the Society with all of its preservation and education initiatives, including this podcast.
Before we sign off, I want to mention another event coming up at a lighthouse, the Holiday Lights Hike at Grand Traverse Lighthouse in Michigan.
That's right. On December 6th and 7th, you can hike through Leelanau State Park and end your hike with Christmas at the Lighthouse. Holiday stations along the way will have an activity or photo op with lighted lanterns in between to guide you to the next station. The lighthouse will be decorated for Christmas. Climb the tower for a night view, enjoy listening to the pump organ, and much more.
That sounds like a great event. Again, I just think it's always great being at a lighthouse in the evening, something special about it. And another thing I thought sounds really cool about that is that it says the tickets to the event include 3D glasses to enjoy the lights. I guess there's something special about looking at Christmas lights through 3D glasses. Did you ever try that, Avery?
I have never heard of that, and I'm very intrigued now.
Yeah, I tried it years ago, but now I want to do it again. I think I have an old pair of 3D glasses hanging around somewhere. So people can check out grandtraverselighthouse.com for more info on that event. Thanks again for co-hosting this doubleheader of Wisconsin episodes, Avery.
Thank you for having me, and I think between these two episodes, I really need to get to Wisconsin.
Yeah, well, that makes two of us. So I'm sure we'll have you back in the not-too-distant future with another Great Lakes-related episode. So thanks again, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks with this podcast with a conversation with the director of Fire Island Lighthouse in New York. He actually just visited my home. We did the interview here. Until then, to all our regular listeners and our new ones, thanks so much for listening, and
keep a good light.